or if you're talking to your colleagues and they've missed the meeting and they want to catch up. I just want to check in with Corrine to see if she's online. And are you seeing the screen?
Yes, thank you. I'm in.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll just now turn it over to Tracy.
Okay.
Tracy Long from AIR.
Great. Thank you, Darcelyn and Renee. Welcome, everybody. This is our program lead webinar. And again, as Renee said, the purpose and focus of this webinar will be Joanne leading us through how to engage virtually with your grantees in the new collaborative spaces. I'll get into a little bit of the spaces in just a minute, and then I'm going to let Joanne really take the show. My name is Tracy Long. I'm a TA consultant with AIR. We also have Joanne Cashman, and I'm not sure if my associate Jennifer Reed was able to join. She was having computer difficulties this morning, so she may be jumping on later. She also provides support for the website and collaborative spaces. So here's our quick agenda. Quickly, I'm going to be going over some of the tools and resources within the collaborative spaces so that you can start learning how to engage within the spaces and the user interface. So what resources are available for you in terms of tools that are there, discussion boards, calendar, things like that. I will go through a quick demonstration, and then I'm gonna hand the reins over to Joanne, and she's gonna lead us through some activities on how to really engage virtually with your grantees. I think throughout, if I'm not mistaken, Joanne has some opportunities for some questions and answers, but we'll also open it up at the end for some Q&A if you have some lingering questions that we didn't get to. Okay, so without further ado, this is a screenshot of our tools and resources, our user guides and tutorials page that you'll find on the landing page that I will share with you in just a minute. Here you will find, it's off the main landing page for the collaborative spaces, and you'll find everything you might need to start engaging in the spaces. We have all of our how-to guides, video tutorials. There's a link on this page to our YouTube channel. So all of our how-to guides we also have in video format to make it easy for you. And then in addition to that, we have, if you'd like to take a deeper dive into how to build online communities of practice, we have our communities of practice info briefs. And within that, you can learn how to lead virtually and how to build partnerships. And that's really what the bulk of Joanne's work and discussion will be about today. So we're excited to have her join us today. So again, I'll show you this page in real life in just a second, but I want to show you, because I want to get to the bulk of our discussion, but I want to show you real quick. This is a screenshot of what your space, a typical space will look like. This is the personnel development page. All of the spaces have similar tools and sections, and the sections are what I'm referring to here as the news feed, calendar, discussion, files, and wiki pages. So all of the spaces are set up very similarly. Each space will have a landing page that you can customize. And off the main landing page, you can navigate to the different sections, which are at the top of the main landing page. As space administrators, which all the program leads are, so you are an administrator of your own space, you can add or delete any sections that would serve your purpose better. So if you needed an additional discussion page, you can add that, and you can even make it private, meaning that you could set up a separate group to have a special discussion within your space. So there's a lot of customization that's available for you within your space. In some cases, as you'll see here off to the right-hand side, your grant called for subspaces under the main space. So if you look here on the right-hand side of my screen, personnel development actually has consortia, centers, doctoral training, and personnel training. Those spaces are included here. And if we toggle down even further into some of these subspaces, we would find even more subspaces. For instance, under personnel training, we have early childhood. So there's an infinite number of spaces that you can create depending on what the needs are for each of the program areas. And again, each of the subspaces is modeled after what you see here, with a landing page like you see here, a news feed, calendar, discussion, files, and wiki, which can be customized depending on what your program's needs are. It's important to note here that all of your grantees will be members of this main space corresponding to your grant. This is a great place to hold broader discussions, share important news, or post relevant files. If as you start getting more into the spaces, if you want more information about how to customize your space, you can add pictures, change the text on your landing page. Again, add new sections up here. We have a webinar entitled Space Administrator Webinar, which you'll find a link to on that YouTube channel, on that main user guides and tutorials page. And that will guide you through some of the easy ways that you can go through and customize and really make use of some of the tools. In addition to customizing the page, it will go through how to use some of the engagement tools in terms of creating teams and really working with the members of your space. Okay, so let's do a quick demonstration. And I am just going to pull up. Okay, so here is the main landing page that I shared with you before. This is our OSEP Collaboration Spaces main landing page. And here is the user guides and tutorials page that I was discussing and sharing. Here's where you can find all of our getting started guides, discussion guides, a link to our YouTube channel, all of the communities of practice briefs that Joanne will be sharing more information about. So all of those are there to help you engage in the spaces, okay? So here's the URL. It's found off our main OSEP Ideas That Work page. And then again, if I go into, I can go into a different one, or I can go just back into personal development and toggle through. Again, these are private spaces, so you'll need your username and password in order to log in. And here's the personal development page in real time. We've got the landing page. You've got a news feed that you can add to. Okay. A calendar that's very easy to create calendar events and share with your grantees. If you had a webinar coming up that you really wanted them to be aware of, things like that, meetings, things like that, those are very easy. And again, that's in the user guides and tutorials page. You've got your discussion, your files where you can post and share files for your grantees. And then the wiki page, which was really a collaborative document space where you can edit a page, post the edits to the document, and then have others join in and edit the page. I'll go back to the Space Home real quickly, and I'm getting ready to hand it over to Joanne, but I did want to show you how these subspaces, how you can really toggle down into additional subspaces. So this one is unique. The personal development grant is unique. It has the most subspaces. So under personal training, we have, again, more subspaces: secondary and transition, low incidence, interdisciplinary, minority, related services, and early childhood. So these are all their own unique and standalone spaces, and only members of this space have access to this. So you can have, important documents or discussions and not worry about it becoming known to outside sources. So it's a good place to try things out and share things in a private space. Again, the pages are very intuitive to use, and we have our how-to guides that are ready to support you throughout the process of getting into the spaces, using the calendar and discussion, and posting those files that you think are important for your grantees. So that is all I have for right now. I will, unless we have some quick questions. Otherwise, I would love to open it up for questions at the end, and hand it over to Joanne so that she can talk us through the rest of how to really engage virtually with your grantees.
That's great. Tracy, you're going to run the slides then?
Yep, you should be seeing. Here's your first slide.
Yep, that's great.
Okay.
So thanks everybody for joining this morning, and thanks Renee for that invitation or that introduction. Most of you do know that we've been trying to do online communication and engagement since about 2002. When we did the first communities of practice, and we found out that a lot of the individuals and the states that wanted to connect people really didn't have any kind of a way to do that. And so we started really thinking about what that might look like. And in 2002, we created a really, rudimentary kind of site to be able to do that. And over time, we've kept developing that as more states and more stakeholders, saw this benefit of staying in touch with each other. So this is a different site than we had worked on, but the learnings about bringing people together in a virtual site, how to follow up on in-person meetings through virtual kinds of communication, how to build excitement for an in-person meeting through virtual communication, and how to use virtual communication to the extent you can when you don't have the options for any kind of in-person meetings. So from those really early days of actually figuring out why people would want to do this, and figuring out how to help people that actually wanted to be the facilitators, the conveners of these online communities, we learned a lot of things. And that's really what I'm hoping that through this contract where I'm working with you and supporting you in using this site, we can apply some of the things that we learned. And the first thing I really wanted to talk about is the technology itself. And as Carmen knows, we're learning this technology at the same time, because in the State Advisory Panel and State Interagency Coordinating Council group, we have a site just like you do. So we've been learning how to use the various features of this. And I agree with Tracy, it's really quite intuitive. And so, the use of good technology like this really is very important to a collaborative site. But what I really want to focus on today is the idea that the technology is not what gives a site its value. It's the interaction that we create, that we build using the technology that this site makes available to us. So it's bringing people together in ways that we couldn't bring them together without this technology. So using the technology is important, but the technology in and of itself, without strategies that really respond to why people would want to go together, get together, what they might want to do together, what they could do that adds value and really brings them back again and again, and how these sites are going to add value to the work that you want to do with your grantees. If we don't address that, you know, the technology will probably not be used to its fullest extent. So I wanted to really spend some time today in thinking about what we might do together to make you feel more comfortable not only with the technology, but how to put together the kinds of things that you can do with this technology to build value for yourselves and for your grantees. So Trace, you want to go to the next slide? So this slide, I really want to talk about the idea of unmet needs. And, you know, we know a lot about in the literature about motivation, that really unmet needs are the motivators. So there's always some things that we do on a site that really kind of gives people a place to go for the things that are handy or useful. But really when a site, it really draws people in, it's because it meets an unmet need. And really, quite often, especially when we don't have a daily relationship with other stakeholders, in this case, your grantees, we may not even know what some of those unmet needs are. But as we start to engage them, you know, we're going to see what are the things that bring people together, what are the things that create energy, and that's where we discover some of these unmet needs that a site like this will let us address and really build that relationship between a project officer and a grantee that allows them to meet some of the unmet needs, or just even uncover things that really people didn't even know that they wanted or needed. So the value in this work really comes together in the fact that we have good technology, and we're hoping to do some things together that will help you to see some of the strategies that might address these unmet needs in yourself and your stakeholders, your grantees. Okay, so let's keep going, Tracy, and let's take a look at what I put together here for us. So the first thing I wanted to really talk about was what do we know about why individuals participate in an online space? And I outlined this in one of those community of practice briefs that say that Tracy showed you just a few minutes ago. And it's called Building Value in an Online Community. So one of the things that I really try to hit right in the beginning of that is that there are really, over time, we know why people actually come back to a space like this. Why is it that you can have a group of people and 4 or 5 of them are really tied into a space, and the other people in the room just don't seem to connect with that space at all? So one of the things that we tried to do over time was take a look at why people affiliate with an online space. Why does it become important to them? And the first one is a convener. And so in this space, you are the conveners, right? So let's take a look at that. So one of the reasons why people affiliate with an online space is that they want to affiliate with that convener. They feel that the convener has credibility on the issue, and the participants want to build that connection. The rest of the reasons that I kind of outlined in that brief are about those collaborators. So what are some of the things that they want to do? And, you know, some of them, you know, especially if you're having grantees that, as Tracy, you know, kind of clicked off some of the groups that we might be able to get together. So suppose you're one of X number of grantees in early childhood personnel development. That idea that you would want to reach out to other people that are both in personnel development and in early childhood personnel development is one of the reasons why, you know, people join these spaces. They just want to be in a place where other people that are doing the same thing hear what they're talking about, see what they say. Others are really interested in really creating, you know, this kind of interchange where you're learning from and with each other about something that is an interest or a challenge for all of you. So this idea of the convener, you know, those of you that are on the line, creating the space and using the strategies to help them do that, that will appeal to some of the people that that we want to engage in this space. Others really want to, their draw is that they're learning perspectives that are different than theirs, or novel ideas that they might not have thought of yet. And so this is another one of the things that draws people into a space like this, and we can start to learn some of the strategies that will help us to do that. And, you know, there are always the people that really are happy, they're proud of what they've done, they want to share it, and they want to let people know how they learned that this was important. That story of how they came to know something, how they came to adopt a particular approach is really important to them. And that spotlight kind of function that you can create in spaces like these is really something that draws in a lot of other individuals. So if you take a look at that, from the convener to the reasons why these potential collaborators might join, you can see that a collaborative space for OSEP grantees that is convened by the project leads or the specific project officer, that it really checks every one of those boxes. So if we, at least it appears to me, that if we start to learn some of the strategies and we start to create this kind of a community among ourselves where we can do that sharing and learning, we really have the potential to ramp up participation in the OSEP collaborative spaces by working together around this goal. So Tracy, you want to go on to the next one? So this really, you know, I'd like to spend some time here talking about why these things would be important to you. So I put down some things that I think we need to think about and that I think we need over time to be able to address. But I want you to be able to, you know, to be able to talk about this and share some of your thoughts on this, because, you know, in any kind of a space like this, it's, for me, as much as you are going to be trying to find the unmet needs of your grantees, I need to find what your unmet needs are. So the first thing would be that my vision of this is that we might be across the project leads, there might be some common goals that OSEP has set for all of you and that you all want to address. But you probably have some unique needs and some unique context, so that the work that's happening in one of your program lead areas might be a little different than something that's happening in another. And so, although we're using the same technology and we're learning the same strategies, we might have to tweak something a little bit to make it fit for one particular program area over another. So, you know, I think that this idea of some common things that you want to do as program leads, and then some unique things that you need to do as the program lead for a particular area, is something that we probably want to spend some time together on. And I guess I should say that I don't know exactly how much everybody knows about the way that I'll be involved, but I have some time on a contract through AIR to support you in this kind of learning. So what I'd like to do is, you know, spend some time learning about what this might look like. So in these slides, I've put some things down that I think are pretty general for everybody that's doing this work. But I know that that each of you probably has some specifics that we want to cover. So the third thing I think that as I was thinking about this, that we're going to need to do is to build this sense of learning from and with each other, because across even the people that are on the phone, some of you have been the leads on projects where you already have a lot of virtual collaboration. I'm thinking about Jennifer and some of the old SIG sites and now the SPDIG network. So, you know, Jennifer doesn't have exactly the same needs as somebody that has not had a program area that that has already done a lot in there. And so we want to learn from and with each other. You know, sharing some of the things that people have already tried, and sharing some of the things that people want to try. So it might be that I'm providing that. It might be that I'm reaching out to one of you to try to provide that, or to lead us to some things that we might want to take a look at for learning together. But really what we want to really think about are two things: the skills that are involved in convening, and then the skills that are involved in online collaboration, because one really underlies the other. We really need to think about ourselves as conveners, and as conveners, you know, what's the relationship that we want to create with these potential stakeholders, in this case your grantees. So there are some specific convening skills that I think that we'll want to go over, and then we'll translate those to how do you convene online, right? So these are the things that I've been thinking about. And of course, lastly, I'm thinking that that there's got to be some opportunity for individual support here. So some individuals really may not need as much in the way of individual support as others. There are others that probably have not done anything like this, and they're going to need more individual support from me, and possibly more support from others on the line as we go forward. So I just want to stop there for a minute, and you know, you could just unmute, and if you're muted, and just let us know what you think about some of these as we start to think about what this work ought to be together. Okay, it would be really important as a first meeting to know what you're thinking this work with me on on-site collaboration on this OSEP site. You know, what's the picture of that in your head? Have I hit some of the things that are important to you? Have I missed any that are important to you? You can put it in the chat, or you could just, you know, join in now and let me know what you're thinking. Anybody?
Hi, Joanne, it's Carmen. How are you?
Carmen, hi.
So I think you hit on all the things we have to think about when we're collaborating virtually. I guess my struggle is partly just very specific to the parent program, in that the SIPR has built a lot of these spaces already for the grantees. And so I'm trying to think through what the unmet need would be of using this space that's not met currently by the workspaces that the SIPR has. So that's sort of what I'm struggling with right now. I mean, I don't think you can necessarily answer it. I'm just saying, you know, you've laid out exactly how to think about it, which is what need are you meeting? Because if you're not meeting a need, then I just don't think people will go. I'm just trying to figure out what that need would be.
Yeah, Carmen, I can understand that. As a convener and as the, you know, a co-convener with the families, with the SIPR on the family site, I mean, you're really a co-convener with them. And so, you know, developing something that is unique for this particular site and works with the site that the SIPR has would be an important thing to do. And that's kind of, you know, you really hit it there when you take a look at that bullet about unique context. I mean, yours is a unique context. The idea that the SIPR has already got a number of these sites, and you already act as a partner with the SIPR on this. So, you know, it would be useful, I think, for you and I and Deborah to kind of just, you know, take a look at this and see what is the value that another site might bring. How would we develop that site for something that would, you know, really affiliate, you know, how could it be developed for something that is unique with OSEP perhaps, or, you know, a particular kind of use, but you know, we may find that the sites through the SIPR actually, you know, check all those boxes. So that's why I think that these individual conversations with each of the program leads is going to be important, because it isn't really a one-size-fits-all. A lot of times we write these things as though if you just follow those directions, you're going to get an outcome, but there's a lot of back-channel stuff to any kind of virtual collaboration that really involves understanding, you know, why people would come there as opposed to doing something else. So I'm really glad you brought that up, Carmen, and I think that this idea of unique context and individual kinds of support, I hope we'll be able to address that. Anybody else?
Thanks, Joanne.
Sure.
This is Sarah. Hi, Joanne, and everyone.
Sarah.
I think we're on the, this is for personnel development, we're a little bit on the other end of the continuum where we have not been, we haven't had that resource. So it's sort of building the skills for people and interest in convening.
Absolutely.
So this was really helpful to walk through, helping me understand the process of the space again. I know I've seen it before, but it's helpful. And then building the interest among the participants to engage. I think there's lots of possibilities.
Absolutely, Sarah. And I think that the one thing that I, you know, if we would go back to that list of why people join, the one thing I've seen in our communities of practice is that a number of the higher ed people are some of the most active participants, and they're really enthusiastic about sharing why and how they came to the design that they're using, you know? So the idea of really starting to engage them around different kinds of approaches to personnel development, getting them to talk about some of the emerging research in personnel development, maybe some of the things that are on the professional development kinds of organizations, like Leaning Forward and things like that, topics that are out there in their world and bringing it down to their grant, I think is a way that we will be able to build that kind of collaboration. Some of the things that we typically do when we're starting a new group like that is to find some things where right off the bat they can contribute. Things like building stakeholder developed repositories around some key topics. You know, some things like generating the topics that have the most interest for people to pursue together. Something that they can, without a lot of effort, that they can participate in, and they can see what they did right off the bat, and then we do something with it quickly. So the idea of a lot of these virtual communications is you ask people for something, and then you turn it into something else. And what they give you there, you start asking them, what else should we do? And then they tell you what else they should do. And it's once you get people participating, they continue to tell you what else, what else, what else. And so it's following that what else that I hope we're going to be able to learn the kind of convening skills that allow you to sort of follow what they're telling you is of value to them. I'll be glad to work with you on that, Sarah. That's great.
That sounds that sounds wonderful. Thanks.
Sure. Anybody else?
I had something to add, Joanne. This is Tracy.
Oh, sure.
Just in terms of, I know that some of the grantees have monthly calls with their program officers. Okay, so you have monthly calls. One thing that the collab spaces can be used for is you know, sending out notes ahead of time or resources ahead of time to your grantees. You can share documents in there that are important. You can also send out any support notes that that might be, or meeting notes that that might be of use to your grantees. So it can become an additional engagement tool for your grantees in a space, so that things aren't necessarily needing to go through email, that you can engage with your grantees prior to and after these monthly calls in a different way. Maybe discussions continue after these monthly calls within the discussion boards around a certain topic. So I think it allows for an extension of these monthly calls that you're already holding to build in a different environment.
Absolutely, Tracy. That's great. I'm so glad you brought that up. That's the way that this really goes to one of those convener skills. The idea that a convener really builds the energy for participation, and it builds the energy after participation for the next kind of engagement. And so, in addition to all the things that Tracy talked about, setting some goals for what you want, what you and your grantees want your participation together to look like, and then putting up some simple self-reflections. How are we doing on this? How are we doing on this aspect of our collaboration that we want to work on? How are we doing on this? And let people do some simple self-reflection, and then give that back to them. Here's what you said. Here's what we're going to try. Here's what people have suggested. So you're constantly giving back to them the kinds of things that allow them to know that you're really thinking about what meets a need for them. And these are all the kinds of things that we'll cover in those that idea of convening skills. Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy. That's a really good currently existing opportunity to build on.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Okay, Sarah. Sarah. I'm looking at Sarah's name on the screen there. Tracy, do you want to go to the next slide?
Sure.
So one of the things that we will want to develop is, what we want this community, and if we think of ourselves as a community that is learning, a community of conveners that are learning to use this space for the purpose of improving collaboration with OSEP grantees. That's our community, right? So what will that community look like? Do we want regular interaction? Do we want to set a call that is like a half hour or 45 minutes? With what frequency? Do we want that kind of thing, where we go over some of these convening skills, where we really cover some of this, like the skill development part of that, okay? I would suggest that we do. And then we can, of course, record that and store it if people can't make it, because I know everybody's got a busy schedule. But I would encourage us to set a regular interaction time that is focused on skill development, okay? Then this idea that we would need to really identify some of the virtual strategy and facilitation skills that are specific to your needs. That we want to really talk about not just your ability to bring people together and to facilitate conversations, but to move this next step and learn how to co-create with your grantees. So in other words, that it's not all this one way coming from OSEP to the grantees, but you're changing the relationship, this idea of learning from and with. So this, what is co-creation? Co-creating things where the convener and the stakeholders are equal partners in developing something. And that can be a little touchy sometimes, since you really are their project officer. But to the extent that you can come to the edge of your role and really try to co-create with your stakeholders, that's something that will build this sense of engagement and their willingness to really engage meaningfully with this. I know that when we created the first shared work site, the state agencies had that same kind of concern, this idea of, well, how do I really, co-create? I mean, I'm responsible here. And the reason, the way that we really tried to think about that was, if you're really a convener, when you're acting as a convener, you're holding your role in terms of accountability, but you're coming to the edge of it to say that if they don't go with me, it's not going to make any difference anyway. So what are the ways that I could actually really create this kind of a relationship, this interchange, collaboration, where we can do something together that they own and I own. And so that's really what co-convening is about. And I think we're really going to try to, I'd like to try to, really talk about co-convening and some of the strategies that we've developed. One of the, I'll just tell you a short story here, but one of the best examples of co-convening, and it was a challenge and it was a risk, and I thought after I started it, I thought, oh, why did I ever do this? But it turned out great. And that was the monograph, the PBIS monograph on the interconnected system framework, crossing PBIS and mental health. And so we were doing the stakeholder chapter. And we had 17 states that were working across education and mental health in a community of practice. And so, because we're co-convening, it would be a little disingenuous for me to just write that chapter. So I said, okay, who wants to join in on this chapter? And to their credit, PBIS had already, started. Every chapter was co-written by someone from the education side and someone from the mental health side. So what Lucille said to me, well, maybe you'll want like 10 people, to do your chapter. I said, Lucille, I have no potential of picking out 10 people from all these states. I'm going to extend an invitation and we'll see what we get. And 42 people signed up. And I thought, oh boy, what do we do now? So but you know what? We did over 4 phone calls and successive drafts and a big intensive interview in the beginning about what they thought ought to be in there. We came up with a stakeholder chapter that still stands up today in terms of the work that we did. So co-convening can be intimidating, it can be messy sometimes, but it can be done. And so I'd like to really try to pursue some of these things and see, how we can involve the OSEP grantees in this idea of co-convening, because really it's not just that they learn that you learn to co-create with them, but that they learn to co-create as a value in the work that they're doing, that they learn to co-create with the people that they're reaching out to, whether it's students, whether it's a professional development school and they're working with school staff. The idea that that co-creation is a strategy that underlies real engagement is important for all of us to learn. And I think that one of the things that we're going to want to do is get a general coaching plan, like how are we going to go about this? What kind of support and things do we need? So when people are trying something, that maybe they bring it to the group, say, here's what I'm thinking about doing, or they report out to the group, here's what I did, here's what I think, but also some of the ways that I might be able to help you individually, and that together you have my support, and that we as a community give and get support from each other as we really work to try to make this site develop in the way that we envisioned it. Anybody want to add anything there? We're okay on that? Okay, so Tracy, you want to go to the next slide?
Sure.
So here's what I'm thinking that the next steps might be, and let me know, again, by either just joining in or by putting it in the chat. But what I was thinking was that that I should probably do an individual interview with each of you about your program area and what you want to accomplish with this. So in my mind, that's probably you know, so that I have a general sense of the parameters that you want to operate in, that I should probably hold that interview with each of you. And in that interview, I'd really like to focus on your current skills and your current experiences. You know, the idea that some of you really have grants that do this already, you know, and I don't want to be talking down to you about that. And then what your individual goals are for this work, taking into consideration that, just as Sarah said, this might be completely new for some of you. And that individual interview would give me a sense of, you know, how to, you know, bring you in on the things that we pursue together, but also, you know, help me prioritize really who needs my time the most. I'm thinking that would be a good way to start. So let me just ask you there, is there anybody that has any concerns about that, or that, you know, and a particular opinion, whether it's good or bad, that we start out with an individual interview?
Joanne, this is Tina. I think that would be really helpful.
Oh, good, Tina, great. Yeah, because I just think it will help me. I know I started in one state where I made some assumptions because I knew 4 or 5 of the grantees. I made some assumptions that everybody was kind of at that level. And I found out about 2-3 months in that they really weren't all at that level. So it's probably a mistake I won't make again. So I just like to start with these individual interviews. And then I think we need to think about our full group meetings. You know, how does this sound to you? Do you want a regularly scheduled, like a once a month, where we do some of this development, where we're kind of putting together the strategy and the technology? So we kind of walk through, if you wanted to do this, how are the ways that you might do it on this site? I mean, I know for me, when we went to NCSI, and, you know, I was pretty familiar with, you know, this kind of a collaboration, but NCSI was a totally different system for me. And I had to really think and listen to what other people did and the way they used the things that we had available to us to put things together. And I think that that might be the same for you, that that you have the strategy, but you actually have to see how you're going to use that strategy on this technology. So it's kind of bringing together the 2 powerful things: the strategy, the skills, the convening skills, and the technology to support it. So I would suggest that we set, and I'm not saying we have to do it for a particular frequency or a particular time period, but I'm hoping that we would set some full group meetings. And we don't need to decide today. I can send out a doodle if Tracy can send me all the addresses, and I can do a little Survey Monkey or a doodle poll. I guess Survey Monkey would be a quick Survey Monkey as to what your preference would be for the frequency and the duration of a meeting like that, and then we'll of course have to set a date. But any problem if I do that? If I send out a little poll for you know, your opinions on regular meetings?
Sounds fine to me.
Yep. Okay. So hearing no objections, look for a poll that comes from me. Tracy, if you just send me all the addresses of who should get that, and I'll do a couple of these questions and as a survey, and then we'll go over those responses in our first full group meeting. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about today was this idea of targeted meetings. So, you know, if we start to have regular full group meetings, it fairly quickly it becomes obvious that some people want more on the same thing. So once we start to have our regular meetings and we see that, you know, so many people are comfortable with this, but a few other people really want a little more, or they want a little more intense training, a little more depth on a particular kind of strategy, we can also do some targeted meetings that are on a topic or really to an individual, right? So the idea of this is that we create a number of ways that you can get your needs met, and that you have the support from me for, you know, basically some coaching you through, to introducing you to these strategies, and then coaching you through the use of these strategies. And you know, a lot of you, you know, have done things with me. I'm interested in kind of working all the way through it with you. In some cases, you might have to tell me to back off a little bit. So my goal would be to have you do a couple of things and really, you know, see that you're feeling secure in, you know, not just not mastering everything, but secure enough that you're not intimidated, and that you're actually looking forward to convening these grantees through the use of this great technology that AIR has put together for us. So I guess we're just about at the end here. I just want to see if anybody has any other questions or any thoughts, anything that I might have not covered, or anything you want to ask Tracy in the last couple minutes we have together.
Yes, and any lingering questions or concerns? I believe Darcelin's still on the call too, so if there are any questions for Darcelin.
I'm here.
Sounds like we're doing okay.
Yeah, so if you get off the call and you suddenly think of a question, you can definitely reach out to either one of us directly, but I also put the collab space email, and if I get an email into that, I'm the one that monitors that. I can direct it to the appropriate person, answer it myself, or get it onto Joanne if it's in relation to something she's spoken about today. But please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. And again, this is recorded, this webinar. It will, we can share the link with you so that you can view it again in case you have questions. Otherwise, you can also look for the program lead webinar, the additional one on how to customize your space. So unless there are any other questions, we'd like to thank you for your time today.
And watch for that survey.
Yes, and watch for the survey, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.